And what is up, guys? I am back again with not more Sekiro this time. This time it's Elden Ring / Elden Ring Night Rain. They're both kind of the same game with the same weapons. But this time, instead of starting with subclasses or classes, we're doing weapons. These weapons are pretty crazy. These are all magic weapons with a varying level gap for each amount of players, although the most amount of weapons are around level 15 or so. Is the relative time when you need to be handing most of these out. So remember, all of these magic weapons are, I have a recommended level for when you could appear them according to me, but if you don't like this, make them appear later, make them appear earlier. It all depends on the campaign style and what the DMs are doing. So DMs, I imagine this was thrown through your window with some player who really liked a weapon. So change levels that you want them to appear at. If something's a little overtuned for the level I recommend it, and you believe it's something that it should be higher, go ahead and do that. And if there's something that I really screwed up, take to the comments. I actually read all of them. So first we have the uncommon weapons. The first weapon is the coated sword. It's a uncommon weapon that requires attunement. It does 1d10 slashing damage. It has the versatile and magical properties, and then has its art a number of times equal to your proficiency per long rest. You may use your action to make a weapon attack, and the target takes 1d12 radiant damage. This ignores resistance to non-magical attacks, does not bypass immunity, and this goes up by 1d12 between levels. You add your ability modifier at levels 5 through 10, and then at levels 11 plus you do 2d12 plus your ability modifier. And this is recommended for players levels 3 to 5. That's about where I'd hand this out. And then this is a picture of the coated sword. It has some stone and then some writing. Next, we have the Curseblade Circs. These do 1d6 slashing damage per circ. I'd recommend giving out 2 of these so they can use the art, but if they just randomly pick up 1 for no apparent reason, they only get the 1d6 slashing. And these have the finesse, light, and slow properties, and twice per day when wielding 2 of these, you can use your bonus action to force creatures of your choice within 5 feet of you to make a dex save, which is equal to 8 plus proficiency plus dex. On a failed save, they take 1d8 slashing damage and attack rolls against you have disadvantage until the start of your next turn, not the end. On a success, the target takes half damage and no disadvantage. I'd recommend this appears around level 5 because all of the different effects stacking can be very strong, and you can dual wield these. And next, we have Glintstone Chris, which is another uncommon magic weapon that requires attunement. This does 1d4 slashing damage, has the light, finesse, and magical properties, and twice per day, you may use the ability Glintstone Dart. And as an action, you hurl a shard of condensed magic at a creature you can see within 30 feet, then follow through with the Swift Strike. Make a ranged spell attack using intelligence. On a hit, the target takes 1d6 plus your intelligence modifier force damage, and then if the target is within 5 feet, you may make a melee attack with the weapon as a part of the same action, and on a hit, it deals 1d6 plus your dex modifier piercing damage. So it does a little more damage than Glintstone Chris normally does. And the melee attack can only be made if the dart hits. So this is recommended for players levels 4 through 6 roughly. This is mainly just because Glintstone Dart is very strong if you're playing like Bladesong Warlocks, I think that's what they're called. If you play, not Warlocks, Wizards. If you play Wizards mainly, this is a very strong weapon for them that they can use when they're not casting spells. Next, we have Rashasa's Great Katana. This is a great katana that does 1d10 slashing damage and has the two-handed and magical properties. And its Ash of War / art or special ability is a number of times per long rest equal to your proficiency bonus. When you take the attack action, you may replace one attack with a sweeping cut, which forces each creature within a 10-foot cone to make a dex save, or take the weapon's damage. On a success, they still take half. So this is recommended for players around level 5 because Weed Cutter can be very strong, although the weapon is not especially powerful, but Weed Cutter can be very strong against large foes. And now we're on to the rare weapons. First, we have the Dragon Hunter's Great Katana, or Dahugaka. This weapon does 1d8 slashing damage one-handed and 1d10 two-handed, has the versatile reach, topple, and magical properties, and once per turn when you hit a dragon with this weapon, the attack deals an extra 1d8 slashing damage. And then twice per day, as an action, you can make a sweeping attack against a creature that you can see within 15 feet. On a hit, the target takes normal weapon damage plus 1d12, and if it's a dragon, it becomes 2d12. And this counts as a melee weapon attack, so you can stack this with extra attack. And this is recommended for players levels 8 to 10, especially after a dragon arc, or before a dragon arc if you think the dragon is extra strong, because this weapon does very high burst damage, especially against dragons, with Dragon Wound Slash doing 2d12 plus 1d10 on hit as one melee attack, and an extra attack means you can add another d10. So this can get very highly stacked very fast. And now, the Scorpion Stinger, which is a rare weapon that does not require attunement, and this does 1d4 slashing damage with the light, thrown, finesse, and magical properties. And then its special passive is Rot Tipped, which whenever you once per turn when you hit a creature with this weapon, it must succeed on a con save or take 1d6 poison damage. This poison slash venom becomes 2d6 at level 11 and 3d6 at level 17, and this weapon is recommended for people's levels 5 to 7. Because this weapon, when it starts, is not very strong whatsoever. It's a nice, extra weapon to throw on the wizard if they need something. And now, we have a couple more rare weapons, and these are the bleed weapons. Now first we have Reduvia, a rare weapon that does require attunement. It does 1d4 slashing damage with the light, finesse, and magical properties, but you may use your dexterity or charisma for attack and damage rolls with this weapon. This is amazing for mainly warlocks, hexblade warlocks. This could be really cool. And then Reduvia Bloodblade is a number of times per long rest equal to your proficiency bonus. You may use your bonus action to unleash a blade of condensed blood at a creature you could see within 30 feet. This forces you to make a ranged weapon attack. On a hit, the target takes 2d6 necrotic or force damage. And then the target must make a con save, and on a failure, the target has disadvantage on its next attack roll before the start of your next turn. This is good for players levels 7 to 10 roughly, because there are a lot of debuffs on this, and it can do some decent damage, especially with the charisma modifier on warlocks or sorcerers. Next, we have Eleanor's Blade. This is very strong in actual Elden Ring, although it is only rare here because there is no bleed in D&D, sadly. But there might be some bleed coming later in the video. And this, Eleanor's Blade, is a rare weapon that requires attunement, and it does 2d6 slashing damage. It has the finesse and vex properties, and then it gains +1 to all attack and damage rolls made with this weapon. And then its special ability is Blood Flame Dance. A number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest, you may use your action to unleash a violent, fiery strike. When you use this ability, make a melee weapon attack with this pole blade. On hit, the target takes an additional 2d6 fire damage plus your charisma modifier. However, the restriction for this is for the next 2 turns you can only use this ability. You can't take other actions, including attack, cast a spell, or other features. And then also whenever you hit a creature with this weapon, it applies the Vex property, which means you gain advantage on your next attack roll before the end of your next turn against that creature. And now, the last rare weapon is Vike's War Spear, which is a rare weapon that requires attunement. And this does 2d6 piercing damage, has the versatile property, and has +1 to all attack and damage rolls, and also counts as magical. This is also, magical bonus is also optional if this is a little strong. And then you gain the ability Frenzied Flame Thrust. A number of times equal to your proficiency modifier per long rest, you may use your action to make a melee weapon attack with this spear. On a hit, the creatures within a 5-foot cone originating from the target must succeed a dex save or take 3d4 fire damage. On a successful save, they take half damage. This is recommended for players around levels 5 to 10. It depends on your campaign style and the magic bonus if you want to keep that on there. So this could be very strong if all the enemies are super grouped together. This Frenzied Flame Thrust that leaves the fire on the ground, that can be very, very strong, but that might not always be the case, so this weapon could sometimes be given out if you're fighting single targets at level 6 or 7. Now we move on to the very rare. So this is the Sword of Night and Flame. This does 1d6 slashing plus 1d6 fire damage, and it has the finesse and magical properties. And then you get +2 to all attack and damage rolls. But twice per day, as an action, you can use the ability Night and Flame, and you can choose either the magic line, which is a ranged attack, or the flaming sweep, which is a melee attack. The magic line is a ranged weapon attack in a 45-foot line. Each creature in this line must make a dex save or take 3d6 force damage with half on a success. And then the flaming sweep is a melee attack where all creatures within 5 feet of you must make a dex or strength save or take 4d6 fire damage on a success or half 46 on a fail or half on a success. And then the Sword of Night and Flame ability the Dance of Night and Flame, I think that's what it's called, increases by 1d6 per 3 levels, and this is recommended for players within a level range of 9 to 11. Because this can be very strong as an AoE option, but it's not doing a ton of super condensed damage, which is why the Dance of Night and Flame, or the Night and Flame ability, increases by 1d6 per 3 levels once you get the weapon. So you aren't going to be level 9 and all the damage increases by 3d6, it's after you obtain the weapon to keep it balanced and constantly scaling so you can use it through the whole campaign. And now, the Marias Executioner's Sword, or the Bellbearing Hunter's Sword. This is a very rare weapon that requires attunement, and it does 3d4 slashing damage. It has the versatile and magical properties, so it does 44 when two-handed. It has the magical bonus of +1 to attack and damage rolls. And then once per turn when you hit a creature with this weapon, it takes an extra 1d6 necrotic damage because of the Bellbearing's Greed. And then the next one is the Dancing Blade, and a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest. As an action, you hurl the sword in a straight line up to 30 feet. Each creature in the line must make a dex save or take 3d6 piercing damage, and the creature's speed becomes 0 until the start of the next turn. Success, half damage, no additional effect. And then at the start of your next turn, you can use your bonus action to keep the sword there, sweep in the same line, forcing all creatures to repeat the save. After the second sweep, the sword returns to your hand and the effect ends. So this is recommended for people levels 9 to 12. This can stack pretty well, but if you need to make it appear later, that is all good. This is just my recommendation, and very rares normally appear a little bit later. Next is Malakath's Blackblade, which is a very rare weapon that requires attunement, and it does 2d8 slashing damage, and it has the two-handed magical properties, and gets +1 to all attack and damage rolls. And then a number of times, equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest, you can use the ability Destined Death. As an action, which lets you, as an action, release a pulse of blackened rune fire. Each creature of your choice within 15 feet of you must make a con save. Failure, they take 48 necrotic damage, and the creature's hit point maximum is reduced by the same amount until the end of its next long rest. Success is half damage, no maximum HP reduction. And then a creature reduced to 0 hit points by this effect cannot regain hit points until the end of its next long rest. So this is where Spare the Dying would come in if a boss has this weapon. Spare the Dying means they don't have to do death saves, but they can still not die and have to be revived. And this is recommended for players around level 12, maybe a little higher. Next, I believe these are the last two very rare weapons, is Dragon King's Cragblade, which does 2d8 piercing damage with the reach, slow, and two-handed properties with +1 to all attack and damage rolls. And as an action, a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per day, you may use the ability Thundercloud Form, which allows you to turn into a stormy cloud, which allows you to move 20 feet without provoking opportunity attacks, and you may make one melee attack that deals an extra 2d8 piercing damage on hit. You can use this feature a number of times to equal to your proficiency bonus. And then the slow ability reduces speed. This is recommended for players between levels 11 to 14. This can be very strong if the boss needs to move around a lot, because its speed is always going to be halved, and you can move around very easily with this weapon. Next is the Shadow Sunflower. This is what I personally used to beat Promise Consort Radahn. It's a very rare weapon that requires attunement, and it does 2d10 bludgeoning damage with the two-handed and topple properties. And its magic bonus is +1 to all attack and damage rolls. And then the Shadowflower Headbutt is a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest. You may use your action to unleash the Sunflower's radiant or not so radiant bloom, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. It does holy damage in Elden Ring, but it's more of like a Death Sunflower? I don't know, I'm not questioning Miyazaki here. Or I guess me as well, since I made it, but whatever. So on a hit, the target takes 3d10 radiant damage. On your next turn, you may use this ability again, and instead of the single attack, you make 3 attacks, which each do 3d10 radiant damage. But this requires focus, so you cannot make other weapon attacks between uses of this ability, and you can topple over enemies. So this is recommended between levels 13 to 16. It is very, very strong. I might even say you could push it out even later because of the 3d10 for 3 attacks. That's 9d10 possible damage, which is very, very high, but you can only do it every other turn a number of times equal to your proficiency. So the wizard's still going to be doing more damage, especially at higher levels. And that fireball is going to be doing more damage than the Sunflower. And now we are on to the epic weapons. And up first, we have the Blade of Calling. And if you've played Night Rain and Duchess, you know why this is an epic tier. Blade of Gold. Oh, it's a demon. It kills bosses so fast. But it does 2d4 radiant damage, has the light, finesse, and magical properties, and you gain +2 to all attack and damage rolls made with this weapon. and when you hit a creature with this weapon, it takes an extra 1d6 radiant damage. And then Blade of Gold. A number of times per long rest equal to your proficiency bonus, you may use your action to throw a wave of gold light against a creature you can see, which means you make a ranged spell using your wisdom. On hit, the target takes 46 plus your wisdom modifier radiant damage. And then the target must succeed on a con save, or the target is blinded. And then the Call of Marika. Once per long rest, when you reduce a hostile creature to 0 hit points with this weapon, you regain 1 use of Blade of Gold. This is recommended for players between levels 15 to 20. I'd say this would be more pushing legendary tier, so you'd have to have a very difficult campaign for people to be getting this at level 15, because it stacks damage very fast. Blade of Gold, if you hit, does 5d6 plus 2 plus your wisdom modifier, and can blind the target, which is very, very strong. And this is what the Blade of Calling actually looks like. Next, we have Promise Consort Radahn's Blades of Light and Lord, which is both of Promise Consort Radahn's weapons, and this is epic and requires attunement. These two swords do 1d10 slashing plus 1d8 radiant damage. They have the heavy, two-handed, and magical properties, and gain +2 to all attack and damage rolls. And then the first ability is Miquella's Consort. So once per turn, when you hit a creature with this weapon, it takes an additional 1d8 radiant damage, which is some decent damage, but not super over the top, which is kind of like Radahn's light rains that come down in one of the abilities. It's like those light rains, that's what ends up hitting them with the Miquella's Consort ability. And then the Promise Slash. So when you a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest, you can take an attack action, you can invoke Radahn's Promise Might, and until the end of your turn, you may make 1 additional weapon attack, and all of these do an extra 1d10 radiant damage, which is like Radahn's crazy combos with all the light beams and everything. That's the extra melee attack as Radahn's combo, and the extra d10 radiant damage are the light beams. And then creatures must succeed on a strength save or be knocked prone when using this ability. Next is Lord of the Battlefield. So whenever you reduce a creature to 0 hit points with this weapon, you may move up to half your speed without provoking opportunity attacks and make 1 weapon attack as a bonus action. This can occur once per turn. So this can be very strong if you're dealing with weak encounters like a bunch of wolves for some apparent reason. Like somebody summoned a bunch of wolves, Lord of the Battlefield can kill a lot of them. And this is what Radahn's swords look like and Radahn himself. And now, the katanas that you probably clicked here for, and one of the weapons that have bleed. But there's another very cool status effect that a very difficult boss likes to use. Melania. And this is Rivers of Blood. Of course it's applying bleed. And this weapon does 2d8 slashing damage. It has the finesse, light, and magical properties, and it does +2 to all attack and damage rolls. And its first ability is the River Flows or Bleed. So whenever you hit a creature with Corpse Piler, the target takes 1d8 necrotic damage at the start of its turn for 1 round. This attack can stack up to 3 times per target, and bleed damage ignores resistance to slashing and necrotic damage. Next is Corpse Piler, which is proficiency bonus per long rest. As an action, you unleash a flurry of strikes in rapid succession, which allows you to make 3 melee attacks with this weapon, and Corpse Piler also activates the River Flows effect. And this is recommended for players level 16 or higher. Definitely I'd say higher than 16. This is very strong. I guess I might have forgotten to change the Rivers of Blood. It is not an artifact. Here it is a epic weapon. Editor Quack here, and I realized after I got back from a D&D session that epic is not a magical weapon tier. I looked really stupid when I asked that in front of my DM. I'm supposed to know what I'm doing, but apparently I don't. So these weapons are in between very rare and legendary tier. For example, the Rivers of Blood that we just covered is more of a legendary tier more than anything. And now it is time to go back to the video. Moonveil. It is a epic weapon, and it does 2d8 slashing damage with the finesse and sap properties, and it has a magical bonus of +2 to attack and damage rolls. And then the Translucent Moonlight. A number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. Per long rest, you can use your action to quickly unsheath Moonveil and unleash a Crescent of Arcane Force. So when you do, you get to pick either a vertical slash or a horizontal slash. The vertical slash is a ranged weapon attack against a creature you can see within a 30-foot line. Hit, the target takes 5d6 force damage. Next is the horizontal slash. You unleash a sweeping attack which affects all creatures within a 30-foot cone of you, and they must make a dex save or take 46 force damage and be knocked prone, and on a success you take half damage with no effect. with no additional effect, and then the sap property gives the creature disadvantage on its next attack roll. And this is what River's Blood looks like, this is what Moonveil looks like. And next, for the final epic weapon, we have Bolt of Grandsax. This does 2d8 piercing damage with the versatile and slow properties, and has +2 to all attack and damage rolls. It also counts as magical. This weapon has the ability Ancient Lightning Spear, which a number of times equals your proficiency bonus. You may use your action to make a ranged spell attack against a target within 60 feet. On hit, the target takes 48 lightning damage, here is the stuff for the slow property, and is recommended for players level 15 or higher. This is what the Bolt of Grandsax looks like. It looks like a lightning bolt, and I believe it is from a dragon. Now, we are into the legendaries here. But, later on, we're gonna have the artifacts, which are the coolest weapons and meant for a very high level player. And this is the first legendary weapon, Rellana's Twin Greatswords, which is a legendary weapon that requires attunement. And each greatsword has the following properties. They do 1d8 slashing damage each, so you can dual wield these, and they have the finesse and magical properties. And then when wielding both swords, you gain a +3 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with them. And then the twin blades of Moon and Flame. While attuned and wielding both swords, you gain resistance to fire damage, and your attacks deal an additional 1d6 force or fire damage, your choice on each hit. Now you have the Moon and Fire stance, which is 3 per day. And as an action, while wielding both greatswords, you enter either the magic stance or the fire stance. And the magic stance is Moonfall. It is Twin Eclipse Assault, and then the fire one is Moonfall Cleave. The Moonfall Cleave, or the fire one, is a giant spin vortex of flame, which forces all creatures within 15 feet of you to make a dex save or take 66 fire and radiant damage split evenly. On a success, they take half damage. If the creature fails, they also have disadvantage on their next attack roll before the end of their next turn. And then Twin Eclipse Assault, which is the magic Ash of War. And this is, you make a three quick weapon attacks against each creature you can see within 15 feet. On hit, the target takes normal weapon damage plus 2d8 radiant or force damage. And you may not target the same creature more than once with this action. So this is very good at clearing out enemies. And then the Never-Ending Dance. Once per long rest, when you reduce a creature to 0 hit points, you regain 1 use of Moon and Fire stance, and you also gain temporary hit points equal to your dex modifier plus your proficiency. And now we have the Black Knife. This, if you've played Night Rain, or just Elden Ring in general, you know how crazy Black Knife can sometimes be, especially in Night Rain. Not just people with Black Knife and Blade of Calling are menaces, but this is a legendary weapon that requires attunement, and it does 3d6 radiant damage with the light, finesse, and magical properties with +3 to all attack and damage rolls. And then when you hit the creature with this weapon, you deal an extra 1d6 radiant damage. And then Blade of Death, which is a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per day. You may use your action to make a ranged weapon attack against a target within 60 feet. And on a hit, it does 48 plus dex modifier radiant damage. And then the target must make a con save. On a failure, the target takes 1d8 radiant damage. On a success, the target takes nothing. And then this is some optional flavors. Since I really like Black Knife, I used it to beat many bosses in my second Elden Ring playthrough. It has the Cursed Edge, which is optional for DMs. And when this is mainly for DMs, but when the wielder makes the wielder make a DC 15 wisdom save once per day if the weapon is left idle in dangerous circumstances, failure could result in the knife subtly influencing the wielder to seek combat. Now we have the Sword of Light and Darkness. Now you're probably going to say, Quack, these are 2 different weapons. And I'm like, yes, but making 2 different weapons when they're meant to go together is a little crazy. So I just combined them like I did with the Radahn's Sword of Light and Lord. So this is a legendary weapon that requires attunement. And it does 2d8 slashing damage, and it has the versatile push and magical properties. And it has +2 to all attack and damage rolls made with this weapon. And when you hit a creature, it takes an extra 1d6 radiant or necrotic damage, your choice. And then it has the ability Light and Darkness. So a number of times per long rest equal to your proficiency bonus, you may use your action to unleash one of the following effects. The Radiant Surge, which forces all creatures in a 30-foot cone to make a dex save. On failure, they take 46 radiant damage and is blinded until the start of your next turn. On a success, half damage and no condition. Next, you have the Umbral Wave, which forces each creature of your choice within a 20-foot radius centered on you must make a con save. On a failure, the targets take 3d8 necrotic damage, and the creature is poisoned until the end of its next turn. On a success, half damage, no condition. So for both the Black Knife and the Sword of Darkness, I would recommend this for heroes above level 15 or 16. That's roughly where I'd recommend it. And if you think this is too low, then just give it to players later. You're the DM, so you get to decide all of these things. And next, we have the Blasphemous Blade, a legendary weapon that requires attunement. This does 1d10 slashing and plus 1d6 fire damage with the versatile property which increases up to 1d12 slashing plus 1d6 fire. And it has the magical properties. And this gives, and magical bonus is plus 2 to all attack and damage rolls. And the main ability is Taker's Flames. So as an action, you can send a wave of molten flame in a 30-foot line. Each creature in the line must make a dex save. On a failure, they take 5d6 fire damage, and the speed is halved until the start of your next turn. Success is half damage and no condition. And when a creature fails a saving throw within 5 feet of you, you can make a melee weapon attack as a part of the same action. And then the main thing is Death to Order. So once per turn, when you reduce a hostile creature of 1/2 CR or higher to 0 hit points with this weapon, you regain hit points equal to your strength modifier plus your proficiency bonus. This healing can only occur a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. This weapon is fit for Tarnished level 15 or 16 or higher. Next we have the Sword of Night, which is a legendary weapon that requires attunement, and it does 2d8 slashing damage, has the finesse, versatile, and slow properties, and has plus 2 bonus to all attack and damage rolls made with this weapon. And then we have the Witching Hour Slash. This is the main ability of the weapon, and a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest, you may use your action to unleash a wave of shadowed steel. Each creature your choice within the 30-foot cone must make a dex save or take 3d6 slashing or necrotic damage. On a success, the creature takes half. Next is Night Imbuement. As a bonus action, you may cloak the Sword of Night in living darkness. This effect lasts for 1 minute and can be used once per long rest. Once per turn, when you hit a creature with this weapon, it deals an extra 1d8 necrotic damage. And while this effect is active, it also sheds dim light of 5 feet. This is, again, fit for Tarnished level 15 or higher. And this is what both of the weapons look like. I believe the designs on both of these weapons is absolutely amazing. Next are the final 3 legendary weapons, and this is Euphoria. This is the crazy twin blade of the DLC. I saw somebody who hacked in Euphoria at the start of the game and used that for the whole game, and he destroyed everything. And this weapon does 3d6 slashing damage, has the finesse and vex properties, and has a magical bonus of plus 2 to all attack and damage rolls. And then it has the vex property where you gain advantage on your next attack roll against the target until the end of your next turn. Now we have Euphoria's Charge. So after you hit a creature CR of 1 or higher 3 times within the last 3 turns, you gain the Euphoria's Charge condition, which lasts until the end of your next turn. While the Euphoria's Charge is active, all normal weapon attacks you make against that target deal an extra 2d4 radiant damage. And then the big weapon, Euphoria Vortex. So a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest, you may use your action to make 3 attacks with this weapon against a creature within 5 feet of you. If the Euphoria's Charge is active on that target, you may also force all creatures within a 15-foot line originating from the target to make a dex save or take 2d6 radiant damage. On a success, they take half damage. This is fit for Tarnished level 15 or higher. Now we have the Mogwin's Sacred Spear, or Moog Spear. This does 2d10 piercing damage, has the two-handed and push properties, and has a magical bonus of plus 3 to all attack and damage rolls, counts as magic. And the first major thing is Meteus. It allows you for a number of times equal to proficiency bonus to use your action to thrust your spear into the air, unleashing necrotic energy in a 30-foot radius circle centered around you. This forces all creatures in the area to make a con save or take 6d10 necrotic damage, and is afflicted with bleeding, which is another slightly different but a blood loss effect. And on a success save, the target takes half damage and does not start bleeding. And bleeding. All effective creatures take 1d10 necrotic damage at the start of their turns, and the creature repeat the saving throw at the start of each of their turns to end the effect, maximum duration of 3 rounds. This is fit for Tarnished level 16 or higher, I'd say. It's a little bit stronger than Euphoria. And now for the final legendary weapon, the Mesmer Spear, or the Spear of the Impaler. This does 2d10 fire damage with the two-handed and thrown properties, and has the magical bonus of plus 2 to all attack and damage rolls. This also counts as a magical weapon. And the main ability is Mesmer's Assault. So a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest, you may use your action to unleash this ability. While active, you cannot take other actions, bonus actions, or reactions until the ability ends. So the first turn, rapid thrusts make 3 melee weapon attacks. Each attack deals 1d12 fire damage plus modifiers. Second turn is your big impact where you slam a bunch of fire on the ground and you lift up the spheres. This does 1d12 fire damage plus modifier. No, that was the first turn, is 3 melee weapon attacks that each do 1d12 fire damage plus modifiers. Second turn is a fire impact where you force all creatures within a 5-foot radius of your target to make a dex save or take 48 fire damage. On a success, they take half damage. Now, the Smith script return. You may throw your spear up to 60 feet, and all creatures within 5 feet of the impact must make a dex save or take 1d12 fire damage. And after throwing, the spear returns to your hand as a bonus action. So this is Mesmer's spear with the fire that appears on the ground after you throw it, because you can't actually throw his spear and it will come back to you. Now, we are in the final stretch, but the artifacts tier. These weapons are amazing. All of these weapons I would recommend to be given out at levels 18 or higher. And each of these are very different with different possible story uses, and are quite strong and also quite fun to make and play. This one is the Darkmoon Greatsword. This is personally my second favorite artifact. The last one is from a boss weapon that I have not quite covered yet. And no, it's not Radagon. Radagon's annoying. But the Darkmoon Greatsword does 2d6 slashing plus 2d6 cold damage, and has the two-handed property, and it has +3 to all attack and damage rolls. And then the attacks with this weapon ignore resistance to cold damage, and it counts as magical slashing damage, to overcome resistances. But this weapon is sentient, as it is a sword of Ranni. It kind of conveys her will. So it has a score of 14 and 18 wisdom and 16 charisma, and it communicates via dreams and whispers. It wants you to keep your oath to Ranni and the sword, and keep what she wants. She does not like cruelty or broken promises. That one mage dude that tried to kill her. So if you betray the sworn oath that you use, the blade grows distant and you lose some of its abilities. The major artifact properties is Ranni's Might. So once per turn when you hit a creature with this weapon, it takes an additional 2d6 necrotic damage. If it is a celestial, fiend, or undead, it takes 3d6 necrotic damage instead. Next is Moonlit Greatsword. As a bonus action, you wreathe the blade in pure moonlight for a minute. While active, your attacks deal an additional 1d10 cold damage, and the weapon also gains reach of 15 feet. And once per turn when you hit a creature with this, you may cleave to a second creature within 10 feet, dealing half damage dice and no modifiers. And you can use this feature once, and it recharges at dawn under an open night sky, or when you complete a significant story oath tied to fate or loyalty. This is for DMs for the significant story oath. And the next thing is Darkmoon Judgment. As an action, you release a wide crescent lunar ruin in a 60-foot line, 10 feet wide. Each creature must make a con save or take 10d8 cold and necrotic damage, and the creature is restrained by lunar frost until the end of its next turn. Success is half damage and no conditions. After this ability, you gain 1 level of exhaustion. This power cannot be used again until you finish a long rest beneath moonlight. And then some minor properties is advantage on saves against charm, resistance to necrotic damage, disadvantage on deception checks. And this is DM's choices on these. These are not required, they're optional if the DMs want to buff this weapon even further. But the major detrimental property is Burden of the Dark Moon. So if you ever finish a long rest indoors underground, you have to roll a d20. On a 1 to 5, you have disadvantage on attack rolls with this weapon until you see the night sky. If you knowingly break a sworn oath while attuned to this blade, the Moonlit Greatsword becomes unusable. Ranni's Might drops to 1d6, and these effects persist until you atone through a significant narrative act. This is fit for Tarnished above level 19. So this sword is very strong in all sorts of ways, but has a lot of its abilities tied narratively. So DMs, if you do not like this and don't want to have this weapon in your games, I will come out on YouTube Shorts and I will make a legendary version of this weapon that you can use without having to worry about all of the narrative properties that these artifact weapons have. Next is Marika's Hammer. I hate Radagon. I'm not the biggest fan of Marika, but they're so important that they have to have an artifact weapon. So this is a artifact weapon that requires attunement, and it does 3d6 bludgeoning or radiant damage, your choice each attack. And it has the versatile and push properties, with +2 damage to all attack and damage rolls. It has 16 intelligence, 18 wisdom, and 20 charisma, and telepathy within 60 feet, and it also communicates through dreams and visions. This weapon seeks devotion, justice, restraint, and dislikes cruelty or reckless violence. So if the wielder breaks an oath or harms innocents intentionally, the hammer might not activate some of its abilities. So its major ability is Marika's Might, or its major abilities. Once per turn with Marika's Might, when you hit a creature with this weapon, it takes an additional 2d6 radiant damage. Against creatures with a CR equal to or higher than your level, this damage increases to 3d6, and your attacks ignore resistance to radiant damage. Next is Gold Breaker. A number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, you may use your action to leap into the air and slam the hammer down, which allows you to make a weapon attack against a creature within reach, and after the attack, all creatures, including the target, in a 20-foot radius circle must make a dex save or take 68 radiant damage and knocked prone. On a success, it's half damage and is not knocked prone. After using this ability, you gain 1 level of exhaustion, so it does hurt you to use this because it is very strong. Next is Radiant Judgment. As a bonus action, you may wreath the hammer in Divine Light for 1 minute. While active, your attacks deal an additional 1d10 radiant damage, and you may push targets up to 15 feet when you hit them. Once per turn, when you hit a creature with this, you may cleave to the second creature within 10 feet of the first dealing half damage dice. And once this feature is used, this feature can be used once per long rest, and has to be recharged after a long rest beneath an open sky or completing a significant story oath. And then there's a couple of minor properties for DMs, but the major burden is Burden of the Hammer. So you cannot rest indoors, and it's the same as the Ronnie effect. If you rest indoors without seeing the open sky, you get disadvantage if you roll a 1 to 5 on your d20. And then Breaking Oaths means your Radiant Judgment is disabled and Marika's Might drops to 1d6. And then Chaotic Axe, the hammer gains temporary radiant power, which is plus 1d6, but imposes disadvantage against perceived unjust targets until an atonement is completed, which means you can't hit anybody. And now, for finally, my favorite and the longest, I think this is like 2 pages long, weapon is the Hand of Malenia, which is Malenia's sword. The base weapon deals 2d10 plus 1d8 poison with the finesse property, and has a magical bonus of plus 3 to all attack and damage rolls. Attacks with this weapon ignore resistance to slashing and poison damage. So this weapon is sentient, and it has an intelligence of 15, wisdom of 16, charisma of 20, and is lawful neutral. It communicates telepathically through dreams. And it likes endurance, perception, victory through suffering, and hates retreat, mercy, and stagnation. And it constantly forces the wielder to push forward, because this is the weapon that Malenia uses filled with rot. So the main effects are Malenia's Might. So once per turn, when you hit a creature with this weapon, it deals an additional 2d8 slashing damage. If the target's challenge rating is equal to or higher than your level, or as a major foe designated by the DM, the extra damage becomes 3d8 instead, which can stack very quickly, but this is only against super strong enemies, and you get quite some nerfs later on. But they also fit Malenia perfectly. And now it is time for Waterfowl Dance. So twice per turn, you may use your action to unleash a devastating fury. Each creature of your choice within 15 feet must make a dex save, and on failure, it takes 5d10 slashing damage and is knocked prone. On a success, you take half damage and are knocked prone. This might seem really weak for Malenia's crazy move that everybody starts complaining about, but this is all for the sake of balancing and not making Waterfowl Dance melt bosses in one hit, although it still does plenty of damage. And now, the next thing is the Vessel of Rot. So a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest, you may imbue your blade with Scarlet Rot as a bonus action for 1 minute. While imbued, the weapon gains the Grazed property, and once per turn when hit, a creature must succeed a con save, or take 2d8 poison damage, or apply the Scarlet Rot condition. The Scarlet Rot condition is at the very end, and this will only be applied if DMs agree Scarlet Rot should be a thing. And this does 2d8 poison damage instead if you dislike rot. And the major detriment is the Curse of Scarlet Rot, which means you are kind of inflicted with rot like Malenia. So whenever you use Waterfowl Dance to reduce a creature to 0 hit points with this weapon, you must make a con save, or you gain Scarlet Rot until the end of your next long rest, which means you just take 1d6 necrotic damage at the start of each of your turns. This Scarlet Rot damage also ignores resistance, and if you fail to save 3 times before finishing a long rest, you also gain 1 level of exhaustion. However, Scarlet Rot cannot be removed by Lesser Restoration and requires Greater Restoration, Heal, or equivalent magic, Next is Pride of the Unbroken. So the blade despises retreat, so if you disengage or flee combat or refuse a direct challenge from a hostile creature, the weapon falters, which means until you reduce a hostile creature to 0 hit points, Malenia's Might only deals 1d8 extra damage. And you have disadvantage on your first attack roll each combat with this weapon. Next is Bloom of Aeonia, which is a major nerf to this weapon, or debuff, which means if you are reduced to 0 hit points while attuned to Hand of Malenia, roll a d20. On a 1 to 5, the blade erupts in Scarlet Bloom. Each creature within 10 feet of you, including your allies, takes 4d10 poison damage, you automatically fail a death save. This effect can only occur once per long rest. So this can end up hurting your wizard if you're back there with him, or it can do a lot of damage very quickly. Although it will also hurt the boss, so you could say it's still worth it. And then next, another minor detrimental property is disadvantage on saving throws against disease, poison, and effects not caused by this weapon. And Flowers of Rot occasionally sprout where you rest, drawing some unwanted attention and some questionable views. And the Hand of Malenia is displeased if the wielder relies on allies to finish battles, avoids hardship, or seeks to remove its curse rather than endure it. So it respects those who fight on, no matter the cost. More content like this and more Elden Ring style stuff, let me know down in the comments. And if you have any other game recommendations or other things, you can either join my comments or join my Discord server, which will be a link in the description for you all to check out. And with that, I will see you all in the next one, and goodbye.